Welcome back to Tech Talks. I'm your host, Jack Brandwood, and this is a podcast where I speak to some of the brightest and most influential people in the tech industry in the UK. This week, I sit down with founder over at SYNTHO, Josh Baker. We talked about everything from building something people want, how to take competition as a good sign, and living up to your potential.
I think it's that classic saying of like, find the laziest person in the room to do it because they'll do it the quickest. I'm definitely not lazy. I'm just good at finding the quickest way to do things.
For more information on this episode and Tech Talks, head over to tact-it.co.uk. Thanks so much for listening and enjoy the episode. Hi, Josh. Thanks for coming on.
Pleasure, mate. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, look, I always like to start these things with a kind of deep question. Who is Josh Baker?
So a lot of people know me as the DJ/producer, and that's what I've kind of based my life around for the last decade. And then in more recent times, I've launched a tech startup called SYNTHO. And in between that and the DJing and music, I've also founded a festival and a label called You and Me. So quite a lot of things that are different, but they all interlink in some weird way, which makes my life hard sometimes because I want to focus on certain things, but they all play a part in those things. So yeah, that's kind of like an overarching view.
How do you find time to watch telly or anything like that?
No TV, no TV in the bedroom, just YouTube on the iPad.
God, that's even worse sometimes. Well, look, it must have started somewhere, right? And the big thing here at Tact is our vision is to create a world where everyone gets their dream job. So I'm sorry to do this, but could you draw me a picture of what you wanted to be when you grew up? And don't worry about how good you are. Are you good at drawing?
I'm not a drawer. But I've been thinking about this thing that you mentioned about the drawing. So yeah. I'm going to do a stick man.
Okay, it's always a safe bet.
I think that's it. And
wow.
That is,
could you sign it for us? Is that all right? Do you just
sign it?
Yeah, we're getting everyone to sign it as well. That's brilliant.
Does that make sense? Do you know what it is?
I hope so. Are you a footy player?
It was football, yeah. For like, I would say, from the age of maybe 4 to 12, it was only one option. It was football.
Right.
And I did like a number of academies. But I always think about this. I went to 3 different primary schools. I started off in Manchester, went to Peterborough and came back here. I say Manchester, Cheshire. And I think that kind of like moving affected playing sport. And in the way of like, you know, if you move in, you meet new people, not playing for a few weeks at a time. But football, I was like convinced. And then the ball represents me a lot. Then I played cricket a lot. And I always thought sport, and I was always quite good at different sports. But yeah, I mean, we ended up on a completely different path.
Well, why did you move school so much?
My mum's job. So she worked in corporate in cosmetic industry, and she started off literally just working in a department store, got promoted, and pretty much climbed the whole way up the career ladder. And that required her to move to London at some point because her job was the regional in London. But then they offered her the job back in Manchester, the equivalent. Then she moved back to Manchester, and then she then got offered kind of the whole UK, and then she could commute. So it meant I went to 3 different primary schools, so it's pretty wild really when I think back to it.
Yeah, do you think that did you good, or do you think it was...
I don't know. I think maybe created a situation where always meeting new people, I always kind of wanted to be the best at things. I think as its pros and cons of that, you know, like playing sport, being obsessed with it, wanting to be the best, and then it was almost, I'd get to a point in the primary schools, I'd be like the guy who was the guy at football, you know, and then you'd change and start again. So 3 times over. And then I went to a high school and didn't know anyone at the high school because I went to Wilmslow High School, which is a sports school. Like that thing, you know, like when you went to high schools, they've all got the speciality thing. Theirs was sport. And I kind of felt like if I went there, that would open up doors for playing football or whatever. But in reality, I don't think it really matters. But yeah, 3 different primary schools and a different high school, but now reside where we started out in Wilmslow. So
I could always like to ask, what were you like as a kid?
I think I enjoyed being the guy, you know, when I was playing football, like I was obsessed with it, you know, and I think because I used to play football all the time, when you put so much time into something, you really want to, you know, be that guy. And I remember we used to play football in primary school. It'd be like, I'd have the ball and it'd be like me, him and him versus like all the rest of the people, you know, like it'd always be like kind of that. But I was academic as well. Like I studied hard, not studied hard. I studied smart. I think that's a common denominator across my life. Like, I wouldn't say I always work hard. I'm good at working smart and knowing kind of how to get the most out of something with as least input as possible. I've been called lazy sometimes and good at delegating, so.
That's surely the best way to do things, right?
It is. I think it's that classic saying of like, find the laziest person in the room to do it because they'll do it the quickest. And I think like that thing of me all through my life, I'm definitely not lazy. I'm just good at finding the quickest way to do things because like, I'm just like, well, if we can do it in 2 seconds, do that. But I don't associate an input with an output. You know, if it takes 2 hours, doesn't mean it's going to be 2 hours worth of good. You can do it in 10 minutes. It can be equally as good. Whereas I know a lot of people, like, they feel like unless they put X amount of time in, the product can't be good at the end. And I know that, you know, you can just earn with your mind or have this idea and it can be done quickly. And I think all through, you know, I was at school and that, no revision, all that stuff, but then I'd always be fine somehow. Yeah. I think it's because like I figured out, okay, one day before the test, right, let's be strategic. We're trying to figure out how we can learn as much as possible or what do we think is going to come up and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, there's a really good book, like Naval Ravikant's.
Naval Ravikant, yeah. So like, cause that he articulates in the best way possible.
Yeah, because he talks about, doesn't he? He talks about how if you start relating your earnings to the amount of time you spend basically on something, then it's always gonna hit a ceiling, right? Because you've only got so much time.
Say for example, I need to return a pair of shorts, which is they're worth 30 quid, and it takes me an hour to get to the post office and do it. If your hourly rate is 200 quid, it doesn't make sense to go and do that. And he says that you need to be ruthless with that. I think probably quite far-fetched with some of it. And he also talks about the leverage thing, you know, different types of leverage and all that. And that it was that book during COVID, which changed a lot of changed my life probably. It was that actual book because it talks about like leverage with code, leverage with capital, leverage with labor, leverage with media. And then if you look at the projects I've got, code's the SYNTHO, media's the YouTube, the podcast, labor's the people I've hired. So, and then capital's things like stocks. We won't talk about that, but I lost a shitload of money on stocks during COVID. But yeah, I gave all types of leverage a go from Naval's book, and 3 out of 4 paid off, not the stocks yet.
Fair enough. Good on you. Well, that kind of leads nicely on to the next question, which is, you know, from high school, uni, how did you get to where you are now? What's the overview?
So it sounds like a bit dramatic, but I was 16, went to a festival, discovered electronic music. I didn't discover electronic music at the festival, sorry. I was always familiar with electronic music from around the age of like 11 or 12. Right. My uncle was like big into UK garage, things like Scooter. And I got an iPod, and I remember he gave me a CD case, and I put them all through his computer. Back in the day, you had to put the CD in the computer, iTunes into the iPod. And I remember doing it, and that was like, when I look back, that was the process of digging for music, of what a DJ does. But at the time, I didn't really associate with that. And then got to 16, met some kids that were a bit older. They went to a festival called Wakestock in Wales.
I've been to that. It's the only festival I've been to.
Went to Wakestock in Wales. Some artists were there. Then it was around this time, there was a really thriving sound of deep house, like Jamie Jones, etc., were really coming through, were really big artists. And my friends had a control of these decks. Anyway, went to this festival, became friends with these older kids, went back to one of the house one day, and one of them had a controller on the floor, like what you use, like a controller is just a pair of decks, but a simplified version, like a USB plug and play. And I was like, oh, what's this? And he was like, oh, it's a Pioneer, blah, blah, blah. I was like, can I have a go? He was like, nah, it's too complicated, mate. I was like, come on, give us a go on that. And I was 16, so 11 years ago. And he gave me a go. And I swear to God, we talk about this now. I had a go. And I was like, I want to be the best DJ in the world, mate. And then he was laughing. I was like, I swear to God, mate, I want to be the best DJ on the planet. And then we waited 2 months, and Hideout Festival was a thing then. It was in Croatia. And some older friends were going there. And it was either I went to Hideout Festival or I got a pair of decks for Christmas that year. And I was like to my mate who was a bit older, what should I do? And he was like, I reckon get the decks, mate. Get the decks. So that was 16. I got a pair of CD ones. And then 17, I got a pair of turntables with vinyl. And then that was kind of just like an obsession was born. And I was very obsessive, like, again, I was like, I used the terms I used at the time were, I want to be the best DJ in the world. Like, it comes back to this thing of like, I wanted to be the best. Like, there wasn't an option. But now I'm at this point in my career, I don't have a burning desire to be the best because I know what comes with trying to be the best. There's like, you're not just the best DJ. You might be the best DJ, but you've got, you know, always on the road, neglect family time, neglect your health. Like, I now have a much more rounded approach of what the best at anything looks like, whatever industry it is. But yeah, that's kind of how it started. And then, yeah.
From that point to now, because a lot's happened.
So honestly, it's been just a matter of taking one step at a time, but doing it every single day. Like, I think James Clear, he tweeted a quote the other day. It was, you don't need to put extraordinary effort in. You just need to do average effort for an extraordinary amount of time. And that's completely what I've done. Like I've not done anything crazy across anything. I've just done it for what I consider a decade, a long time to do something.
Yeah.
Because something popped up yesterday on my feed, and it was me in my parents' basement 11 years ago on the decks. Because yesterday I got confirmed my first gig at DC10. So by the time this is out, this will be official. Like that'll be on social media. Wow. And I was like, that took me 11 years. But now I'm getting loads of followers on social media, and they're like, Josh Baker's the GOAT. Josh Baker, this is his summer. And it's that classic thing of like every overnight success takes 10 years. I'm not saying I'm an overnight success, but I think to a lot of people that discover me now, it seems like, oh, this guy just came out of nowhere. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But yeah, it was just a matter of laying one brick after another. And I was really obsessed with making music. I started a club night called You and Me. That was about 3 years into DJing. So around the age of 20, I played at Sankey's just down the road from here. I met a group of friends that were older. One of the guys that was doing the night there, Kurt, who's my business partner and agent now, he was like really warm to me, took me in under his wing almost, and he's a few years older than me. And in the end, I had this summer where they were going to a thing called Off Sonar in Barcelona, and there was a thing in Ibiza. They went for a month, and I think I was 19. I think I'd been to uni for a year in Leeds. I dropped out because it wasn't for me, and I said I did the same thing again. I was in Leeds. I said to my girlfriend at the time, I'm leaving here. I'm being the best DJ in the world. And I rung my mum, and she was like, go for it. You can drop out if you want. She's been very supportive on everything I did with my mum. So anyway, that summer, went to Sonar with my business partner, Kurt, business partner now, and all these other people older. And I was like 19, threw myself in there. And then that summer in Ibiza, went for a month. We decided to make You and Me, which You and Me is a club night, now arguably one of the biggest in Manchester and really becoming like a mainstay in Europe. So we started this off with kind of just a platform for me to DJ, and it gave me a chance to get the hours in on the decks. We started off in a small club. So that was the kind of first part. And then using that momentum, I started to build my name up a bit more. And then that gave me a chance to play. It gives you proof that, you get your videos on Instagram, etc. And then that same team from You and Me started off with a small club night as an idea in Ibiza, made Hide and Seek Festival. So we kind of earned our stripes, so to speak, doing You and Me. And it was always kind of that thing, you have a few drinks. I imagine we had a festival. And then one day I said to my mum again, and she was like, oh, have you seen that Cape Stone Hall in Cheshire? It's a wedding venue. And I was like, oh yeah, it looks amazing, but it'd be so expensive. We set up a meeting with them, and it was expensive. The You and Me thing was not really like the graph is so, it's just that graph continual. Like maybe when we look back, it will be exponential, but so far it's just been this kind of like across the board, this steady growth across the board. And yeah, that's kind of the gap. And then I think before COVID, I feel like everyone I spoke to was like, oh, that was about to be my time to shine. And before COVID, I could start to feel the gigs come in. And I just joined an agency. So this was still like, I'd been DJing 6-7 years, and I just started getting gigs. So maybe 1 a month, 2 a month, getting paid maybe like 200 to 400 quid. But they started to come in a bit, and there was a request coming in. You can tell on Instagram, like, okay, there's more followers, there's more likes, more messages. And a big part of this was releasing music. So I was getting better at producing music, better at releasing music. And yeah, before COVID, it all started to pick up a bit. But then obviously everything grinded to a halt.
I think from that's a really important point, which I think a lot of people forget nowadays, is that consistency piece. Is like, you mentioned a quote by James Clear then, and you see a lot of quotes with a similar sort of vein. There's a really great guy on Instagram called Shane Parrish, called the Farnham blog, I think it's called. And he says a similar sort of thing. Basically, a lot of success can just be boiled down to doing really boring things for an extraordinary amount of time, and then waiting for it just the tipping point for it to pay off. It sounds like that's what you've done.
Yeah, I mean, it's not glamorous to say, oh yeah, all I did was just, I had a part-time job in retail for a couple of years, did a few lessons, and just made tunes every morning before work and went to the gym. And how long did you spend in the studio a day? So, I don't know, like 2 hours. Went to the gym, went on Instagram for a bit, didn't do anything crazy, but I was in a situation where I designed my life at the time. I worked at Joan Malone for about 2 years. The candles and that.
Yeah, the super expensive candles.
Yeah. So I sold candles. But that was like a Christmas temp job. Then I worked there. And then I worked in a department store in Wilmslow called Hooper's, 10 till 5, Monday to Friday, which is actually unheard of in retail, not to do a weekend. So I could do the 10 to 5. I could make tunes before work, and then I could still go out the weekend. And I could turn up there like dead on a Monday. It didn't really matter because it was really quiet.
Yeah.
So when people always ask me should I go part time, I'm just like, you need to try and design a life where you can get your music in. You don't need 5 days a week. Time's not the problem for anyone, because when you have loads of time, you find yourself sitting around doing nothing. It's actually better to keep busy and trying to find, pockets of time where you can dedicate to music. But yeah, I got lucky because I could just do it before work and just chipped away. And because I didn't go all in at that point, I didn't feel as much pressure. But then when I did go all in, if there's one thing I change is it would be not going all in on music so soon. I committed full time to music like way before I should have. And I was doing lessons, like teaching people how to make music, but that's how I did SYNTHO in the end. So it's kind of all of it plays into each other. Sure. But I put a lot of pressure on myself. It was kind of like, you go to your family parties at Christmas. So what are you doing? You're still doing that DJing? And at the time I was probably 21. I'm just like, yeah. But I always had the belief I'd do it. It wasn't a question, but that time it was uncomfortable conversation, speaking to anyone, like, what do you actually do? Yeah. And it was like, I'm being a DJ. It's like, all right, yeah, nice one. Like it's and I was like, oh yeah, well I am. But Mum always believed me, but I think there was a weird time, maybe 21 to 20, maybe around 21 to 23, where like there wasn't really any proof that it was going to work, sure. But I'd gone all in on it. And I think people were looking at me like what the hell is he actually doing? It's no career.
yeah, that it makes sense. Also, the fact that you worked at Joe Malone and now you're a DJ, surely your book has to do something with wax, like from wax to wax.
That's a good one. Like that's a good one.
I don't know. I'm just, you've heard it here first. Talk us through SYNTHO then.
Yeah, so this is probably the most life-changing project ever. COVID hits, we're at a standstill. I'm like, okay, I've always been entrepreneurial, sold the sweets at school, started the label, started the party, if there's a little bet to be optimized, like always on bits and bobs trying to make some money. COVID hits, I can't DJ. And I'd started to get a bit of money in as well from the gigs. And I was doing quite a few one-on-one lessons because as the gigs started coming, more people wanted to learn from me. So I started bringing people to my studio. I think this is crazy now. I had real people in my studio. Like the thought of that now, I'm like, no way. But people would come drive across from within an hour or so. You come and sit with me for 2 hours. They pay me, I don't know, 50 quid or something like that. And I'd just go through their music, show them some stuff. And COVID starts, they can't come. Like I remember it's like, oh, you can't come today. Then someone said, can we do it on Zoom? I was like, yeah, sure, why not? Like, what's this Zoom? Started going on Zoom. And then I put on Instagram then. I was like, oh, if anyone wants any lessons, I'm doing some Zoom sessions. Like my story, I probably had like 5K follows. And then people started messaging me. So it started off like, how much for a session? I'm like 30 quid. Then like week 1, maybe I had like 5. Then week 2, like 7. Then I was like, maybe I could charge a bit more here. Now, you know what I could do? I could charge them for a block of 3. So like really just naturally kind of like starting to upsell them into blocks. Then I started doing more for the blocks. And then I was like, wait a sec, I'm telling everyone the same thing. What is the point of this? It was demoralizing as well. The same guy, like you've got 2 hours of one guy, because I was doing 2-hour sessions, do usually 8 till 10, 10 till 12. And then I'd be telling the same guy, like from the 8 o'clock slot to the 10 o'clock slot, like how to do something. And I was like, I can't do this. But I was starting to get like decent chunks of money transferred to my account. I'll say decent at the time. I'd never really made any significant money. It was just always enough to get by to the next weekend. I lived at home. I didn't really have any big outgoings. But like I started to get, chunks of like 3 people would pay for a block of 3 in a day. So I'd be like 600-700 quid or something. I'd be like, oh, this is decent. Then what was funny is I'd spend it all straight away. I'd buy like a new piece of kit. I'd buy every time the money landed, it'd go straight out. So anyway, I was telling everyone the same thing. And then there was a guy doing something similar. Maybe he's listening to this. And I was like, he was doing like a similar community thing. He was recording videos and selling one-to-many. I'd never really delved into this, Naval Ravikant, all this stuff. And it was just this, like a lot of people discovered a lot of this self-help business, like just this whole like underworld that I never even knew existed. I say underworld, just this whole world that I didn't know existed. And I remember listening to a podcast, The Modern Wisdom, like early on. I listened to Chris Wilkes for a long, long time. And it was maybe 50 episodes in or something. And he was talking, I was in the gym. I can't remember what point in time this was, but I remember this internal dialogue was saying, imagine I could do a podcast. Like, imagine I could speak on a podcast. Like, it'd be so good. Like, and then I let that sit. I never thought about it again until this thing came around, this tutorial opportunity. Because some guy said, why don't you make some tutorials? And I was like, imagine I could speak on camera. And then like, I think I let this sit for a bit. And then I was like, wait a sec. Why can't I speak on camera? Then I had this like epiphany of like, I literally just need to buy a camera, record myself speaking at the camera. And then through that, because at that time, it's 3 years ago, 3 years in 2 weeks, SYNTHO launched. So even 3 years ago, video has literally gone like, on the exponential graph. Everyone's doing video now, but 3 years ago it was still like the guy that did video was a video, the video guy. Whereas like now, like everyone does a bit of like talks to the camera, does this. So at the time I was like, right, I could try this, but I was embarrassed to do anything. Anyway, it took me 3 months from the initial idea of SYNTHO to actually finally making the first video. Technical problems, like you've probably done podcasts where they've gone wrong, or like glitches, all this stuff. And in the end, I said to mum, like, right, I've got this idea. She said, I think it's great. And I've got the thing wrote down from like what I originally planned. It was like this social media hub. And it's kind of what SYNTHO app is now. But in the early days, it had to start off as this kind of just videos. But we've really kind of, the long-term vision is really good to look back on now, because I had this bigger picture the whole time, but it just took incremental steps to get there. It was late 2021. I realized, okay, I could potentially turn this into actually something properly. And that's when the seed was planted for the app. But yeah, that's kind of like how it all started with SYNTHO.
That's incredible. Because like you said, you sounded pretty disheartened when this other person set up at the same time. Did you ever think that just means there's an appetite for it?
No, at the time, because there was no one doing it, there was only room for one person in the seed. Do you know what I mean? So I was like, I'm too late, it's over. But the reality is, when other people are doing it, it's a reason to do it, because it means people are interested. And another learning of this whole journey was, every time a competitor popped up, at the initial insight, I was like, it's over. But it actually pushed me forward every single time. So like every time someone popped up doing something similar, the version of me wanted to be the best at it, either increase the production value, increase the tech capabilities. Like there was always, everything that came behind me made me run faster. And there's that thing of like when there's a rat that smells cheese, it pulls like that. When there's a cat behind the rat, it pulls even harder. And it was kind of like that for me. Like, the money was the cheese, but then when it was like someone else going to do something similar to me, I was like even more motivated to do it. Not in a way of like trying to me versus them, just more of like, I want to try and provide something which is even better to people, and, try and leave something which is iconic, I guess, in the long run, and try and do something innovative.
You that push and that pull.
Yeah.
That's great. Just for anyone listening, SYNTHO, can you explain what it is?
So it's an electronic music education platform which combines social features with world-class video content. So in simple terms, if you want to be an aspiring DJ, where do you even start? What do you need to do? To be a DJ, you need to learn how to make music. And to learn how to make music, where'd you go? Previously to colleges. Who's teaching at colleges? Usually failed artists themselves. I've been to one for a year. Some guys telling me how to use a reverb, but not giving me any context in how to actually finish a track. And this was kind of what fueled SYNTHO to be born. I was like, wait a sec, I know what people need to know, because I'm the guy teaching the lessons. I can teach people at scale of how to just make a banger. At the start, it was this kind of dialect of, I will show you how to write a banger in simple terms. I'm not from a musical background, so I think one of the reasons it's been successful is I've not got any kind of official certificates, no scientific methodology to my workings. I've just figured out how to do things in an efficient manner with the least effort possible. All comes back down to that. Like, again, I can teach someone how to make something sound musical. I can't play the piano. I don't know about music theory, but I've almost learned how to do things in a functional way. I like to use the word functional because it's A to B to C, but it's also, it gives people guardrails to follow, but then you can use this information to then go and be your artist and have that basic understanding. And it's not even basic, we teach really advanced stuff, but yeah, it's across the board from, if you're a beginner, you don't know how to use Ableton, which is the software we teach on, to people who are making great music, but they just need to know that kind of last 5% to try and release on a label they dream of.
Sounds great. I'm so musically inept that it probably wouldn't make any sense to me. Or maybe
it would.
Exactly what I need.
This is what it is. So like, one thing I'm trying to reframe now in my mindset is, anyone is a potential customer with 2 ears that's interested in music. Because before, we've really focused on just kind of like my following and the people in this pocket, the scene. But now it's like, right, anyone who's got any interest in electronic music can come try it. So this kind of next level of scalability is, how do we kind of make it a brand which is across the board? At the moment, it's still probably seen from the outside as this education platform for a very niche kind of genre. Whereas in reality, we need to try and reframe that so more people can be like, okay, I want to give it a go. It's a subscription, 2 months, let's try it out. Versus, like an 18-year-old has to decide what he wants to do for the rest of his life. So he commits to a music tech course for $9,000 a year in Leeds, for 3 years. That's a big commitment. Like this is a great way to try and test it out, because within 2 months if you're interested in most hobbies, whereas people have to go to uni and do music tech, it's a bit risky in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a big commitment.
it is, considering if someone's never ever made house music and they say to their mom, hi mom, I want to go and do music tech. Okay, go on then, son, go and do 3 years in uni. It's a big commitment for a hobby. It's essentially a hobby for 99% of people. Making music is always going to be a hobby, and same with DJing. But to go and do a, plus all your things, spend 50 grand on a degree once you spent all your things, maintenance, it's a lot of money.
Yeah, it is. And for people, young people who are probably in a similar boat to yourself, who have this amazing idea, who entrepreneurial, driven, and want to turn, like you said, something they're passionate about into a business. We've had this discussion. You've learned a lot along the way, a lot of time through making a few mistakes. Any lessons you would give people in that position now?
Build things people want. That sounds really obvious, but I can see around, like, a lot of people do things because they have these epiphanies, these great ideas, and they want to seem like a genius. So they don't try and figure out if anyone actually wants what they're trying to build. So I did a lot of this with the app. Like, I tried to do some certain features by not asking anyone, by doing it because I'm this visionary. But you need to build things people want, otherwise you're building for no reason at all. So to find that out, just speak to people. And the thing I saw, it's like, right, go and ask someone. I could ask Jack, okay, Jack, right, I've got this idea. I'm selling this new toothbrush which does this, and this. Do you think it's a good idea? Yeah, it's a great idea. Okay, will you buy one now then? And if they say no, okay, why won't you buy one now then? And then try and dig deeper. Like with the festival, I've said this before, the festival's a hard graft every year. And I've been at an after party before, and I said, okay, we're not doing the festival this year. Everyone's like, what? I'm like, no, we're not doing it. Why? Because it's not feasible anymore. Oh, this year I was going to buy a ticket. I'm like, have you bought a ticket yet? Nah. Okay, buy one now then. And they're like, oh, I can't afford it. I'm like, well, what would have to change for you to make you buy a ticket? And it's trying to find out what these reasonings are. Because a lot of the time you'll find out by saying to someone, okay, buy one now. What's the reason stopping you? And that information may be valuable to change the things. So SYNTHO, why wouldn't you sign up now? Oh, because there's not this type of content on there, for example. But I was, for a long time, trying to guess the content all the time, guess the features. But when I started to really prioritize customer feedback and always stay in touch with them, it's made my life so much easier. So for anyone listening, if you've got this idea, try and go and speak to people, find out what this type of person is into, where they're going to be, and try and go and speak to them. And you'll find out a lot more information than guessing constantly.
That's a great bit of advice. Love that. Advice I'm going to take, 100%. Yeah, it's that feedback loop. Do you think people don't ask that question because they're maybe scared of the answer?
I think it seems too obvious. Every kind of tech person I listen to now, and I've been to some talks near Bonded Warehouse, people are just talking about, it's the kind of the role of the product manager. But I was trying to find a product manager for SYNTHO, and I was like, what, this is a £600 day rate to do some Q&As? I'll do it myself, thank you very much. So like, I'll listen to every product management podcast under the sun. I can link some to this. And I can't see anyone not benefiting from understanding the kind of the role of a product manager in a process. But yeah, I think people are just scared, for one, and having no process to it as well. I think, like there's a thing called Typeform. Just create a survey and just send it to some people, say it's anonymous. And there was this thing on a product management podcast I listened to, and it was saying that, say you've got a big decision in your life, I could email Jack, say, okay, Jack, right, SYNTHO's in this position. I'm only asking 5 people who understand, or they're a high-level business, they're doing this. I need your opinion on these 5 things. And you almost create this kind of a sphere of people that you really trust, and then you can go to them for high-level decisions or risky things it might be. But by you saying that to you, say I said to you, okay, I really need your advice on these 5 different things. They might be quite complex things, but I could ask you and then other people. They'll like to give you a good response because you'd probably be quite honored if I considered you as one of them guys.
Yeah, sure.
And it's built up that network. Like for me, I always ask my mum things, Kurt things. Like I've got that network of things that I always ask. But yeah, to make it easy, try and build a process up. Typeform's good, or just simple as like having an Apple Notes, and just write things in there. But yeah, a process will help.
You talk about your mum quite a lot in a great way in terms of how she was so supportive, inspirational. Was there any bits of advice that your mum has given you over the years that resonated?
She's taught me the value of hard work and honesty. She's from just a normal background, but then she's climbed the career ladder to be at the top of the game she's in, and always been someone who puts everyone else first. So she manages to work at the highest of levels, but then still is the person who's there for all the family, for everyone. So I learn a lot from her, and she's always there to listen to me. I notice things in her that I wish I had more of myself, but at the end of the day, I think it's the hard work thing for me, because it's weird, because I think a lot of people, I'm from no means from a tough upbringing, etc. But it's that thing sometimes, like, oh, if you sleep in silk sheets, whatever the saying is, you're not as hungry the next day.
Yeah.
But like seeing her go and do what she's done makes me hungrier. You know, I'm just like, I really want to go and do something like she's done and really achieve I have a fear of not reaching my full potential, because I look at her and I think she's maxed out, you know, she's done the whole thing. So she teaches me a lot of good values in terms of being a good person, and also the values of hard work.
It sounds like you're into your podcast, and especially got like Chris Williamson podcast, and some really great like nuggets of information on there. And that whole reaching your full potential thing, you probably heard the saying, it's like regret is when the person you are meets the person you could have been. Yeah, that's quite scary.
It is, and I think COVID changed a lot of that for me, because I'd launched SYNTHO. I've always been kind of academic and entrepreneurial, but when I was just doing the DJ thing, I was only satisfying one itch, this kind of like artistry itch. And I don't really think I'm an artist in terms of, everyone's an artist to an extent, but when I say artist, like my brain isn't wired up like an artist. My brain is wired up quite linear and quite A to B, you know, like logical, and I can make sense of things and things like that. Whereas an artist is quite, you know, the all interlinked, a bit like, you know, just a bit wild. Like that's not me. But I feel like before COVID, I was going down that artist path, you know, partying a lot, kind of just making music, not as disciplined. And then that whole shift of COVID, having the synth opportunity, I can now satisfy that side of things as well. And I think without having the SYNTHO project, just pursuing DJing for a lifetime, potentially could have been that situation of like, what version of myself could I have been if I'd actually dedicated time to other things? But I still think over time, I would have realized, okay, just being a DJ isn't what I want to do, because I kind of make jokes like, what the hell do DJs do all week? Like, honestly, I think DJs only play 2 days at the weekend. It's because you need 5 days to get over the touring, the partying, like all this. And like, if I'd done that for 20 years, because I partied hard from 18 to 24, like non-stop. If I looked back at that in 10 years time, I'd have been like, no, that was not my full potential. And who knows like what mindset that would have left me in.
That's quite astute of you to understand exactly how your brain works. And do you feel like you were just kind of playing a role then, of like, you feel like a DJ should be this party animal that kind of goes out and is bohemian, kind of like, you know?
I think it's hard because I think there's a magic in the rock star lifestyle. And sometimes I'm sad that I can't like be purely present in that rock star lifestyle. When I say that, you know, it's just a party and you wake up, you go to the next party, playing records, sunset, sunrise. Like there's a magic in there. And like every person that I speak to, they're like, they ask me questions like, what's it like? What's this? What's that? And you think, it is unreal, like the moments. And sometimes I think that, because, you know, now when I'm playing, sometimes I'm thinking, shit, I need to go and check the email or something. Or I don't think that while I'm playing, but I might finish the gig and check my email. Like that's not the rock star lifestyle that you see on the movies, you know. They finish the gig, they go to the after party, you go to the flight with no sleep. Like I still do the rock star things from time to time, but I'm far from immersed in that lifestyle. But the only thing is, I saw a quote, it's like, it's not fun when the glass is empty. Basically, once the drink's all gone and the party's over, no one's laughing then. Yeah. You know, like in the moment, there's a beauty of the hedonism, being present, partying. But I know all too well, and I know from friends that have done it for 2 decades, that when it's over, when it's all said and done, like no, they're not laughing, the guys that are non-stop partying. And I think there's been a big shift in the music industry, you know, with all the mental health awareness, that there is a huge cost of non-stop partying and living that lifestyle.
Throughout your career and just your life, is there anyone you've crossed paths with that you would, you know, think that they're the person that inspired you to get to where you are, or it was had a lasting impact on you?
I think that it's safe to say the biggest impact on my life is probably being Kurt. He's one of my best friends. He's currently my agent. He's my manager. He's my business partner of You and Me, and business partner of Hide and Seek. So he kind of runs Hide and Seek, and then with You and Me, we kind of do it together. And then as an agent, he's just my agent, and then managers. So he's someone I met when I was 19, and he's 4 or 5 years older than me, just lives around the corner actually. And he's a promoter by trade, and he kind of saw this thing in me. And I think I was playing in Ibiza, and I think he said, you've got something, you know, like he said, like you've got something about you, like when I was playing. And he kind of made me realize, like, wait a sec, I'm pretty good at this. I kind of knew I was, like, you know, when I said I'm going to be the best DJ in the world, there'd been no external validation or external kind of confirmation that, yeah, you are good. Like, until him, he said, like, there's something there, you know. And he's the guy that kind of aided me to start You and Me. So it's a two-way thing. Like I've brought him on this journey with me as the artist who's kind of opened a lot of doors, and without him pushing me, open up doors as well for me. Like we've really worked side by side to open up opportunities, which honestly, I speak to people at parties and a lot of people know about Kurt and about me and our friendship. And people say, I'm jealous of what you've got. Because it's like having someone else on the journey with you that like, if he wasn't here with me doing the journey, I don't think I'd want to do the journey. As much as like with my mum as well, like she's been such a big part of it, but him, we say it together, like we're so lucky to share the moments. He rang me yesterday at DC10. He's like, mate, I've got goosebumps. Look at this lineup. It's me, then Enzo Siragusa, then Jamie Jones, then Michael Beebe. And we'd been texting in the morning, like, I wonder who's going to be on the lineup. And he shares the moments with me. Like he's living the thing through me as well. And he's got his other ventures as well he's got student events and other projects. So it's great because we've both got a lot of things going on. But then when we come together on that, we really celebrate it together. And it's really like, I always think about winning in life is all well and good. But if there's no one to share the moments with, then it's no good at all. And with him, it's a shame the half marathon's this weekend because I would have been on the beers last night.
Good.
But yeah, it was one of them where like yesterday was a pretty iconic moment, and it was like that was epitomizes the relationship. That he rings me up like, mate, I've got goosebumps. Look at your phone, look, and then we're just like shouting down the phone at each other.
You talk about that rockstar lifestyle, which is super romantic, right? And you look at it, and it is romantic. Obviously, as you said, when the glass is empty, the fun stops. Yeah. But things like that, like sharing that journey with your friend Kurt, it must be just amazing. And also the low points, right, as well. The low points you have, because both turning around ready to celebrate and no one's there is kind of like, ugh. But at the same time, you need a shoulder to cry on. You're like, Jesus, I can't believe we fucked up this much. Yeah, you need someone there for that as well, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've had tough times financially with the festival and you and me, etc. But we've always been like relentless, and I think we've always believed in ourselves no matter what. There was times when we nearly packed it in with you and me. We lost, like, in hindsight, it wasn't that much money, but there was some really bad shows we did where we lost a bit of money. And we're like, where does this go from here? But it comes back to the thing, we just kept going and going and going. We never did anything extraordinary. Funnily enough, when we tried to push the boat further and speed up, that was when we seemed to hit a block. We'd lose some money or we'd try and do a bigger show. And I think with the thing was of promoting, unless there's something you fluke it, you've got to just go and maybe build a party 10% each time. Not many time we did, like a nice 300 capacity party, 600. Then we're like, right, let's go 2,000. We've got a big venue sorted, big sound system, big production, big lineup. Then we sell 800 tickets and we're like back to square one. We're like, fuck's sake, you try and throw the dice and then it doesn't pay off.
So just little by
little. And there's nothing glamorous again about the thing. Hide and seek again. There's nothing glamorous about hide and seek really. Like the whole thing seems glamorous, but the way it's happened, it's in the trenches, messaging people on Instagram to share a post, trying to get all your friends down on the day for guest list. Like it's all a slog. Sometimes you think, okay, wonder if these guys at the top, I played at Coco London the other week, amazing venue, Coco in Camden, like beautiful, amazing setup. And they had to do a switch around there was a band on the day, then me at night. And you think, okay, these guys got down to a T, but it's still the same. Like there's people running around, moving shit around. And it's like this thing with business. You think people have got it figured out at the top, but everyone's the same. Everyone's just pretending they know what's going on.
Yeah, fake it till you make it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's it is great. I think that having that realization when you realize that everybody who you think, oh, these owners of businesses and these MDs and these C-suite people, a lot of them, like you said, are just blagging it a lot of the time and trying to bumble the way through. Okay, brilliant. Well, look, last question because I'm conscious of time for you. I always like to ask this. If today was your last day on Earth and you weren't on this amazing podcast, obviously, and you weren't spending time with family, what do you think you'd be doing?
I'd probably doing exactly what I do every day. I live a life where now there's nothing I would change. I'd be going for a coffee. I'd be training. I'd be running. I'd be recording podcasts. I'd be making content. I'd be making tunes. I'd be on WhatsApp to Kurt. I'm in a fortunate position where if I won 20 million tomorrow, I don't think anything would change. So I'd be doing literally exactly what I've done today. Just maybe in a hotter country, but even then there's something magical about England, the grey days and like just in the trenches. I'd like to have my own studio in town, and I would like to have a bit more financial stability in the business, because building an app costs a lot of fucking money. But in terms of my day-to-day life, I don't need or want anything I don't have. And it's that phrase of happiness is wanting what you already have. So yeah. I'll be here.
Mate, love it. Brilliant. Well, look, thank you so much for coming on, mate. I've had such an amazing conversation with you and incredibly inspiring, and so excited to see where SYNTHO is in the next 6 to 12 months.
Thank you very much, mate. I've enjoyed it a lot.
And that's it for this week's episode. Thanks so much for listening, and I really hope you enjoyed it. Anything we talked about will be linked in the show notes. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. And we'll catch you on the next one.